Okay, so for the corrections, guys, about half the test had a formula. So if you missed any of these 7 questions, you can stay here and kind of skip ahead and see which question you need. But these all had formulas, and about half the test didn't have a formula. So 1 through 5, 12, and 14, about half the test. It's exactly half the test. 7 questions had formulas, 7 didn't. So this is partially what made this test so hard, is that half of it, you just had to know how to do it. Didn't have a formula, you had to know how to do it. So let's go through the formula ones first. If you didn't miss any of these, then you can skip ahead in the video until you see where I'm talking about the other questions you need. So for number 6, what I'm going to do for these is just kind of point out the formula, and then if you're still stuck, you can let me know, and I can kind of help you out. But I just wanted to show you what the formula was. So on number 6, this was the graph you had. Now there was 2 possible ones. So this may be the one you had, this may not. So read your question carefully. But it said, what should an investor do on the day the 2 graphs cross, buy or sell? So the answer was buy or sell. Now again, this is actually on the formula sheet because it's right here. Your answer would have been buy if the fast overtakes the slow. Would have been sell if the slow overtakes the fast. So what you had to do for this question was, you also had to know, even though on the formula sheet it tells you when to buy or sell, you had to know which is the fast and which is the slow. So the one with the fewer days is the fast one. The one with more days is the slow. So after they cross, whoever ends up on top, that tells you buy or sell. So if you're a little confused on that one, let me know. Again, you may have had this question, but you might have had one other one. There's 2 possible questions you got there. Number 7, it says, what was his gross capital gain? Now, this is, again, on the formula sheet. Gross capital gain. I want to clarify that it does not say as a percent. So for number, I keep clicking my email, close it out. So for number 7, gross capital gain is just the selling price minus the purchase price. If it does not say as a percent, it's not as a percent. The one other thing I had to be careful about is that it says total selling price, total purchase price. What you were given in the question was the per share prices, but he purchased that many shares. And again, your numbers are going to be different. So you needed to find the total selling price of all of the shares, the total purchase price of all of the shares, and then subtract them. Again, your mistake may have been you didn't find the total for all the shares, or your mistake may have been you did as a percent, which is actually number 8. Capital loss as a percent is the next formula. Let me see if I can copy this correctly, if it'll let me do it. I think it might make it look weird. Yeah, it's a little weird. So you should have divided by the purchase price on bottom. That's selling price minus purchase price over the purchase price. Again, if you knew to use that formula, your mistake may have been jumbling up the numbers. Bought stock, that first number, whatever your first number is, again, it's going to be different than mine, but that first number is the purchase price. Sold it later, that's the selling price. So you should have gotten a negative answer here because it does tell us this is a capital loss. She's losing money. And again, you may have just jumbled up where things get plugged in if you did use that formula. Okay, number 9 said, what are her net proceeds? So that's right here. Net proceeds, again, is profit, taking into consideration that you do have fees you have to pay. Now, selling price and purchase price should not have been an issue. Just read selling price, purchase price. But again, there were 2 fees. Your mistake may have been you didn't calculate them properly. 0.9%. Again, your percent is going to be different. Divide it by 100. If your percentage was less than 1%, so anything from 0.4 or so, I think is what I had it set at, to 0.9. This is 2 zeros. of means to multiply. So to find that first fee, you should have done your percentage as a decimal times 177. And again, your numbers are different. So this would find you the first fee. Taking your percent as a decimal and multiplying with the purchase price, because it's in the same sentence. And then it's just 18. So you have one fee is the percentage, and then the other fee would have been the 18. So again, with that one, if you use if you know you used the formula and you still got it wrong, let me know. And I can kind of see what you're doing wrong there. Okay, number 10. Again, so easy to get jumbled up. Number 10 was, what is the post-split price per share? That's the B over A formula. You have to read. I don't know how else to tell you to do it because that's your mistake. Post-split price per share. Post-split share price means the same thing. So that should have been the B over A, which again, A is 3 and B is 2. So again, that's going to be, ended up flipping to 2 over 3 would have been the fractions. Just be careful. Therefore, 11 would have been the other one. How many shares? Number of shares. A over B times number of shares. As always, you can look back to your problem and let me know if you're still not sure why you got it wrong. If the formula wasn't the issue, I can help you from there. Okay, last one that had a formula was yield. That is the very last formula on the formula sheet. Yield was annual dividend divided by the current price. Now, when you do this, just read carefully. The dividend is the smaller number. The current price is the bigger number. You should also multiply your answer by 100 to get it as a percent. Though if you didn't, I would have given it to you. But if you missed that one, you either didn't know there was a formula or you divided the wrong way. The 236 should go first. Okay, so again, with any of those questions, if you saw, okay, here's the formula, here's what's on the formula sheet, and you're still getting it wrong, let me know and I can help you from there over what calculation mistakes you're making. So now let's talk about the second half of the test, 1 through 5, 12, and 14, that didn't have a formula. So I'm going to walk through these a little bit more, though they're pretty all quick with no formula. So number 1, once again, keep in mind my numbers are different. So when you do your corrections, make sure you're using your numbers from your test. Now, I didn't realize this until second hour, that I had said value when I meant percent. So when I'm going to go back through and grade, I'm going to keep an eye on the answers that some of you guys got, because value versus percent is different. Most people knew I meant percent because they did the review and they saw this question on the review. But if you were confused there, again, I fixed that for my other classes, but for my first hour class, I'm sorry. No one pointed it out to me. No one asked me like, hey, this is a little bit of a different question. I meant percent. Now, because I meant percent, percents come from decimals, which come from fractions, which are basically division. We are going to divide these two numbers. That's because you should have taken the portion on top divided by the total on bottom. Because this is how a lot of fractions work. It's what portion do you have out of the total amount. So you would divide that, get it as a decimal, and then get it as a percent. That's all you had to do for number 1. Again, if you weren't sure, because it said value, I was taking that into consideration when I'm regrading your test. Sorry. So, number 2. Again, I haven't said this much this video, but pause anytime you need to. You guys know that by now, to go do your correction and then come back and go on. So number 2, here was a couple people's problem. They used the wrong number. And I can tell if you did, and so I gave you a half point. Dusty's share is the first number. So Dusty's fraction should have been 1 out of, add these together. That was your first step, and when we have this ratio, was making it as a fraction. So 1 plus 4 plus 7 is 12. So Dusty's fraction should have been 1/12 of whatever this is, 6.7 in this case. So again, that's going to vary. I think that changed. And then that's your answer. Yes, it is 6.7 million. However, I wanted you to leave it like this with the understanding that our answer is going to be in millions. But if you didn't, I went back through and I graded that and gave that to you. So again, some people's mistake is they used Ron or Turner's numbers, which were 4 and 7. Dusty was the first number. Yeah. A couple of you guys just forgot how to make that fraction also. So there was that. Okay, number 3. So number 3 was the closing price the day before. So remember, that's using this change and the opening of today. We're looking for the day before, but that change is the overnight change. So what you needed to remember was this change gets applied to the open, but in reverse. It is possible you had a positive change and then you'd be subtracting. Here we have a negative change, so we would add. Again, for this question, though, it's going to vary from person to person what answers they have. So just be careful. We add because it's negative. If your change is positive, you subtract. Because, again, you're going backwards a day. This is January 6th. We want January 5th. Going backwards means we're going to do the opposite. So whatever your change is, do the opposite of that to the open. Number 4, guys, was so easy. Actual volume of shares sold. You should have looked at sales in hundreds. Now, this is not your answer, though. That's the whole point, and that's why it says actual volume, because this is not the actual volume of shares sold. It is that many hundreds. So, a couple of us understand that means we should multiply by 100 because we have this many hundreds. But also, we should understand that when we do this, 2 zeros just get tacked on. So all you had to do for number 4, guys, was take the sales in hundreds number and add 2 zeros. Some of these questions are that easy when you pay attention. Yeah. So it was that many shares that were actually sold in just that one day. A lot of back and forth across the world and across the nation in just one day. Okay, number 5 was a 2-day simple moving average. We haven't done a 2-day before, but it doesn't matter. You should know 2-day means to take the average of 2 days at a time. So you should have done the average of the first 2 numbers, which is just adding them. Hit enter, divide by 2. Ugh. That's your first answer. Your second answer is the average. Again, it moves. Move it over 1. That's your second answer. And your third average is the average of the last 2. So add them, divide by 2. There's your first answer. Add them, divide by 2. There's your second answer. Add them, divide by 2. That's your third answer. So you had to know what it meant by moving average. As well as that, yes, there's 4 numbers, but it's a 2-day average. That means 2 days at a time. Okay, number 12, market capitalization. So this was not a formula. It was vocabulary. You had to know market capitalization meant total value of all shares. If I wanted to buy all of the shares for this company, Boeing, how much would it cost me? Just this definition by itself should be enough to know what to do, because the total value of something is all of the things that I have, 0.609 billion. Again, your numbers are different, times how much it costs for each, right? So all you had to do is multiply those 2 numbers. Sorry, stuck in my throat, I guess. All you had to do is multiply those 2 numbers. And again, 0.609 is what you should have plugged into the calculator, with the understanding that your answer is going to be billions. That would be the value of all of the shares. How many shares we have times the price per share. Okay, this last one, number 14. how much in dividends did you receive last year? So I didn't want you to get confused. I should have changed this phrasing. Don't like you're like, but last year, is that going to be different than this year? Like, why does it say last year? It just means in a year. So we could have said, how much in dividends would she receive in a year? Because she's receiving every single month. That's what it means by monthly dividend, is they send her a check every single month for $134 a share. We want to know how much she receives in a year. So if she's getting a $134 per share and she has 471 shares, that's multiplication, but she gets this every month, so to find how much she gets in a year, you should have also multiplied by 12. So these two numbers, whatever they are, your numbers are different, times 12 would get you your answer. So I know I went through all that kind of quickly. Like I said, if there's any where you like this video is not good enough or it's not enough for me to figure out what I need to do, I'm still making mistakes, please reach out to me. This is the last thing going into your test category, and so if your test category is not so good, this is it. There's nothing else going into the test category besides these corrections. So please reach out to me.